Hello everybody, happy Sunday. It's another glorious sunny day. And today we have a special guest with us, which is Dr Shireen Kassam. She's a consultant hematologist, a lifestyle medicine physician, and also founder of Plant-Based Health Professionals UK, which is a non-profit that provides evidence-based education. You can tell I'm reading this, can't you? To health professionals and the public on plant-based nutrition and other lifestyle interventions for the prevention and treatment of chronic disease. So I've probably titled this somewhat incorrectly. I've said it's the benefits of a vegan diet, but really it's more about plant-based nutrition. Hello, Rachel, good to have you with us. So I shall bring Shireen in to the studio, and I'm sure she can explain better than I can. And if you have any questions as we go along, do feel free to just send us a comment and we shall address them as we go. So welcome, Shireen. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm well. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome. And thank you very much for your time and sharing your expertise with us. And hello, Joe. It's good to have you with us as well. So perhaps you'd like to give yourself a bit of an introduction on top of what I've just said, so you can talk a little bit about your journey that's brought you to what you do today.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a medical doctor. I qualified in the year 2000, and I work at King's College Hospital as a consultant hematologist, so mainly looking after patients with lymphoma, which is a type of cancer of the lymphatic system. But more recently, I changed to doing that more part-time, so 3.5 days a week, and I dedicate the rest of my time really to providing education on plant-based nutrition. And my reason for that kind of shift in my career or how I spend my time was really when I became vegan for ethical reasons back in 2013, and it led me to sort of look into the field of nutrition a bit more deeply, because I had to suddenly decide how I was going to cook and feed myself and family on a vegan diet. And I came across a wealth of scientific literature on healthy plant-based diets or healthy vegan diets and their potential role for preventing and reversing chronic disease. And I guess for anyone in the audience who have already got a background in sort of understanding veganism and plant-based diets, you'll know that most of the literature has come out of America, and there's many more sort of American doctors talking about health benefits of plant-based diets. But back in 2013 here in the UK, it was difficult to find doctors or other health professionals.
Oh, seem to have lost the sound there. Oh, I can't hear you anymore. Let's just try removing you and then adding you back in. Can we hear you now?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we're back on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I can't actually hear you now.
Oh, gosh.
No, I just...
There we go. Hopefully. Let's see.
Are we back?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. I think this is going to be an intermittent problem, actually. But anyway, let's see how we go. So I formed this organisation called Plant-Based Health Professionals UK, and its title explains itself. It's an organisation that provides education and advocacy, mainly for health professionals, but also for the general public, on the role of healthy plant-based diets for disease prevention and reversal. And subsequent to forming that organisation, I now work also for Winchester University, where I've had the opportunity to develop and facilitate an online course for health professionals on the topic of plant-based nutrition. So this is the first sort of academic year I've been running that too, and it's been exceedingly popular actually, which is good to see. I think there's a lot of interest in using nutrition in whatever form as a type of therapy, because at the end of the day, it's what we put into our bodies that leads to our overall health and impacts it very intimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I keep banging on personally about the link between our mental health and our physical health, because we are what we eat, what we do with our bodies, whether that's exercise, nutrition, rest, that has a massive impact on our mental health as well as our physical health. So yeah, I'm noticing a shift personally. I don't know whether you can reflect this as well, Shireen, but I'm noticing that there's, I suppose, historically, veganism was more of an ideological position. People were doing it for moral reasons, environmental reasons, animal welfare. And now there is more and more evidence and more of a movement of people shifting towards plant-based diets because of the nutritional health benefits around that. Is that something you're aware of yourself?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think just in, you know, the last 6-7 years that I've been vegan, it's much more common to come across people who are either vegan or considering going vegan, or who have adopted a more of a plant-based diet. And like we were saying before we went live with this, you know, the term veganism is clearly a broad term describing a social justice movement with animals at its core, but also social justice for humans as well. But you know, in the context of diet, vegan diet, if you say you're eating a vegan diet, it doesn't really tell you what somebody is eating. It more tells you what they're not eating. They're avoiding all animal.
Ooh. We've lost you again. Let's try removing temporarily, adding. There we go. Can we hear you now? Oh dear. Oh gosh. Sorry about this, folks. We've been having this problem this morning. It's not happened before. So Shireen will log back in and hopefully we'll be able to hear you again.
Back. It's a really weird fault. Yeah. So yeah, vegan diet doesn't really tell you what somebody's eating. So it's a better descriptor to say a plant-based diet. And then within that, you know, a healthy vegan diet is called a whole food plant-based diet. It's composed of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, and small portions of nuts and seeds. And ideally to minimize added oil, salt, and sugar as well. But in answer to your question, yeah, I mean, I think the interest in plant-based diets in general, certainly in the last year, has been driven by the coverage of our climate crisis, because of course we know that animal agriculture is one of the top contributors to climate change, loss of biodiversity, pollution of our waters and oceans, you know, and the list goes on. So really, as an individual, if you're concerned about climate change, which we obviously should be, the single one most important change you could make is to transition to a healthy plant-based diet, which is so easy in our country. I know there's going to be differences in lower income countries where food accessibility is an issue, but you know, for us in the UK, there is no reason to not adopt a healthy plant-based diet.
Yeah, it's very easy to do so, and perhaps for some people it is a question of changing mindset and realizing that it's very simple to actually reduce or cut out the animal products in your diet and switch to plant-based nutrition. There is a lot of alternatives out there, some of which are heavily processed, and like you say, they might have a lot of fats, oil, salt, sugar added. But you've provided me with a fact sheet which I've shared with the group, and there's lots of resources out there and webinars that you guys produce, which helps people to switch to a plant-based diet, cooking schools, all that type of stuff. There's loads of information.
Yeah. I think the only thing stopping us is our mindset, our culture, our habits, our behaviors, our social circles. You know, it's difficult to make any change, as we know. And I think, you have to be probably easier just to do it slowly, shift to saying you're going to eat more fruits and vegetables, swap in one meal a day as a vegan meal, change your chili mince to, bean chili, for example. And, before you know it, you've increased your repertoire and learned about new plant foods that you probably hadn't incorporated into your diet. And actually the variety of a plant-based,
Oh, can you still hear me? Oh gosh, sorry about this, folks. Let's try removing again. Back in. Any good now? Can you hear me, Shireen? Can you hear me now, Shireen? Oh, really sorry about this, folks. Technical difficulties. Maybe we'll switch to Zoom for future conversations if this continues. There we go. Really sorry about this.
I'll try and just connect up to the power source. I don't know why that would make a difference, but I'll do that and see if it is more stable.
Yeah, I don't know if it's you, me, or somewhere else that's going wrong, but anyway, we'll muddle through as best as we can. So sorry about this, folks. Okay, so I suppose moving on to the scientific stuff now, Shireen. What are the scientifically proven health benefits of switching to a plant-based diet?
Yeah, so what's great is that what's best for the planet and the animals is also best for human health. And there has been an accumulation of data over the last few decades demonstrating this. The most certain benefits are that they will, a plant-based diet, a healthy plant-based diet or a healthy vegan diet will reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. So that's heart attacks, strokes, and all the risk factors that go with it. So high blood pressure, high blood cholesterol. So that's for certain. And when you look at a combination of all these studies put together, you can reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease, or particularly heart disease, in the order of 25 to 30% reduction compared to somebody on a conventional sort of, Western, UK typical Western diet. So I think cardiovascular benefits are for sure the most certain. Certain cancers, so when you look at the health of vegans, there's about a 15% reduction in the risk of developing cancer in your lifetime. And I think just those two main disorders are just worth discussing further, because at the end of the day we're all going to die of either one of those two illnesses, cardiovascular disease or cancer. And so if we can make such vast reductions in our own personal risk, that's enormous. But there's always a caveat that you're not going to eliminate risk completely. But when studies have looked at this further, not eating predominantly plant foods means that not only will you potentially add years to life, these will be healthy years. Because I think the problem at the moment is, we've been very good at extending life, mainly through our use of medications and procedures and, early diagnosis, but approximately
Gosh, sorry, let's try this again. Really sorry for this patchy stream we've got today.
So about 10 to 11 years of our life is spent in ill health, and nobody wants that for themselves or their families. So having a healthy diet predominantly of whole plant foods will reduce your risk of the commonest diseases. The other major benefit is a reduction in the risk of type 2 diabetes, which is now really an epidemic proportion and really creates ill health for the entire body. It's not just a question of high blood sugars. It affects every single part of the body. And it's much easier to maintain a healthy weight on a plant-based diet. For in a very simplistic way, the foods that you're eating on a plant-based diet are lower calorie density, but they're much higher in nutrients. So, everyone eats about the same volume of food every day, about 4 pounds of food. And if that's made up of whole plant foods, that's going to be much less calorie dense than, the same weight of food in animal derived foods, whether it be meat or dairy or eggs, for example. So those are some, straightforward benefits that you'll gain by transitioning to a plant-based diet.
That's great. So reduced risk of cancer, reduced risk of heart disease, which are two of the biggest killers, reduced risks of diabetes, which, as you say, is becoming an epidemic. It's kind of already is in America, and it's definitely over here now as well. And the quality of life one, I think, is a really important point that you made there, Shireen, around, yeah, we're extending life mostly through medication and the kind of care that we get in our latter years. But the quality of that time that we are alive is improved if you switch to a plant-based diet. So all really good reasons on top of the ethical reasons for the animal rights, I suppose, and the environmental aspects as well, which I'm very passionate about. So there are a couple of comments coming in. Okay, it's a great discussion. Don't worry about the technical problems. Thank you very much. I'll carry on. Okay, so I suppose we've covered what the risks associated with a typical omnivorous diet are. Are there any precautions, any risks around a plant-based diet, any additional supplements that we'd need to take that we don't get from a plant-based diet?
Yeah, for sure. And this sort of discussion always slightly annoys me, because everyone goes on about, oh, you have to be so careful with a vegan diet. But actually, you have to be really careful with any diet that you choose. You know, the fact is that most of us are not eating an optimal diet.
Oh, gosh. Sorry. It's gone again. Bang. Sorry about this, folks.
Yeah, so most omnivores in the UK aren't even getting enough fibre, but we don't, call that a deficient diet. Anyway, back to your question. So yes, one needs to plan a vegan diet or a plant-based diet in the same way as you need to plan any diet that you're going to be eating. So the particular thing to know is obviously about B12. If you're on a 100% plant-based diet, you need to take a regular and reliable source of vitamin B12. And I won't go into the details of this. When you share the fact sheet, it details, the different doses and different frequencies. You can choose one that suits you. But, the point being that vitamin B12 is not found in plant foods or animal foods. It's made by microorganisms. So most of our farm animals, they get a little bit from their diet and from, consuming bits of, soil contaminated with bacteria. But actually, most farm animals are now supplemented with vitamin B12. And then, the omnivorous diet would get that as a sort of byproduct of eating animal foods. But in a plant-based diet, you won't get any B12. For all diet patterns, and actually I want to emphasize this quite a lot right now, given our current state of lockdown and our lack of sunlight, all diet patterns need to supplement with vitamin D. In the UK, it's recommended that every citizen supplement between October and March. But obviously now, despite the fact it's April, none of us are getting enough sun exposure on our skin. So I would really urge all of you viewers to continue taking your vitamin D supplement. The dose that you should take is a little controversial, but I would go for 1,000 international units of vitamin D3, and you can get a vegan D3 from Lichen every day. So if you're not doing that already, please do so, because it's so important for your immune function. And there's a little bit of information coming out that may be a reason why certain groups, certainly Asian and African, Black Africans, are doing worse with this virus. So if you are like me with dark skin, then definitely, but everyone should be supplementing. So those are the two essentials on a vegan diet, and then you have to know where you're getting your other nutrients. So iodine, for example, most omnivorous diets obtain iodine from either fish consumption.
So we've got some questions coming in. Thank you. We shall try and address these very shortly when Shireen comes back.
So most people get iodine in their diet either from dairy consumption or from fish. And the dairy, again, cows are supplemented with iodine, or it's as a byproduct of the cleaning fluid that's used within the sort of dairy vats and stuff. So again, it's not like milk from cows has iodine, because iodine comes from the soil, and it comes from soils which are close to the sea. So you can, of course, get iodine from seaweed, but it's a little unpredictable how much you're going to get. So as long as you know how much is in what you're eating, then that's fine. I choose to get mine as a supplement, 140 micrograms a day. So you can get it from sea vegetables, but I don't eat many sea vegetables, not something that's really been part of my conventional, traditional Indian diet. So I choose to supplement. So those are the kind of big three, and you just need to know where you're getting all the other nutrients in the same way as where you're getting your nutrients on an omnivorous diet. But I think the conversation never falls to what useful nutrients there are in a vegan diet. You know, we know that people on a plant-based diet get so much more fiber, vitamin C, magnesium, potassium, folate, all these things that, you know, other diets are less good for. So there's always, you know, the pros and cons. Different nutrients are going to be more abundant in different diets, but there's no reason why you can't optimize your vegan diet. And actually all the major dietetic organizations around the world clearly state that well-planned vegan diets are healthy for all stages of human life, you know, from birth, pregnancy, adulthood, and, you know, through to older life.
Yeah, great, thank you. So that was a really comprehensive answer. So it's iodine, B12 and D3, and just any diet, whatever diet you're on, you just on it and make sure it's balanced, full of whole foods, fruit and veg, and it is applicable throughout the whole age range, which is really good to hear, because I know there's a lot of concern for parents who are following a vegan or plant-based diets, and I suppose it comes from a lot of the myths that are marketed by, you know, the meat industry, the dairy industry around you must feed protein to your children through meat, otherwise they'll be protein deficient. You must feed calcium to your children through cow's milk, otherwise they'll be calcium deficient, which I'll let you say it's nonsense, but to me it's nonsense.
Yeah, for sure, it's nonsense. You know, all plant foods have protein, there's calcium in certain plant foods, and really
gone again. Sorry, folks. Bang. Technical issues.
Yeah. So, you know, as you can get all these nutrients, it's just knowing where to find them. But all plant foods contain protein. So as long as you're eating sort of equal amounts of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, so that's the unrefined versions of things like rice and bread and quinoa and, you know, whatever. So whole grains and beans, with small portions of nuts and seeds, protein is just a moot point. You get far too much anyway through that, as long as you're meeting calorie requirements. So, you know, you need to eat enough. And I think that's the what a mistake people can make when they're transitioning. You actually have to eat more, because as I've said, a plant-based diet will be lower in calories. Plant foods are lower in calories, so you can't just swap, you know, your amounts if equal amounts between animal and plant-based diets. So I'm not making this very clear. You need to eat more to get the same amount of calories. So as long as you're eating enough calories to meet your energy requirements, you'll get enough protein. And calcium, you know, there's different ways of getting it. Most of the plant milks are now fortified, and that's a perfectly good way of getting it. But otherwise, you know, leafy greens, beans, nuts and seeds, you know, all those have got calcium in them. I posted on social media this week about a story in the media about a vegan celebrity who'd got kidney stones by eating too much spinach. And so, you know, people think that spinach is a leafy green that's high in calcium. It does have calcium, but it's also high oxalate as well, which inhibits the absorption. So there's just a handful of greens like spinach, Swiss chard, and beet greens that are not good sources of calcium, and you can end up getting too much oxalate. But otherwise, leafy greens, broccoli, kale, etc., beans, and then certain seeds like sesame seeds, and fortified products. And actually a really good source is tofu for calcium. So, and you must make sure that you're buying calcium set tofu. So they use calcium sulfate to set tofu. Not all brands use calcium, but if they do, it's a really good source and healthy source, because soya is a complete protein for those who worry about whether your protein is complete or not.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you. That's interesting to know about spinach, because I shed loads of spinach, so I might have to swap some of that out for kale or broccoli.
Yeah. Well, if you think you're eating it for your calcium, there's better sources, but of course there's other great benefits to eating spinach as well. So mix it up.
Ah, gone again. Sorry. Yeah, I eat loads of spinach, but I'm not Popeye. I don't know what's going on. I keep, it just doesn't happen. Maybe it's just only happens in the cartoon world.
Yeah, let's say it's all about variety, and it's best to have a variety of greens and eat the different colors of the rainbow, and therefore you're not going to end up overdosing on one particular nutrient and deficient on another.
Great stuff. So we've had a question come in. How do I transition from being a meat eater to plant-based? I think you've kind of answered that already, but is there anything else you'd add to that?
Well, only just to say everyone does it in their own way, and don't feel that you have to do it overnight. So I think take the time to think about your regular meals that you cook at home, and take a week or so to decide how you're going to make the swaps from meat or dairy in the diet to switching that out to some sort of plant-based alternative. And Paul, as you've said, there's plant-based alternatives to everything. If you're having porridge for breakfast, just switch to having soya milk or oat milk, for example. You can find sort of what I call transition foods. So if you think you want to make it easier to start with, you could go for these sort of mock or fake meat type things. Corn products, for example, or seitan, or other sort of things that are mimicking meat. For the short term, while you learn or upskill in sort of cooking vegetables and grains and beans, etc. So yeah, take the time to think about your common meals. We all have 5 or 6 main meals that we reach for all the time, and just try and make those swaps. And as I say, just pay attention to certain nutrients. So, make sure you get your supplement that you want to for B12. You don't have to do it immediately, but, we all have a body store of that for quite a few months, if not years. And then trial and error, really. As I say, you don't have to do it overnight. But the fact sheet that I've emailed you, Paul, just covers all the basics and the food groups to include. You'll find your regular consumption of fruits and vegetables that you enjoy the taste of, that you can reach for. The other tip is obviously use lots of herbs and spices, to flavor your foods, because not only do they add amazing flavor, they add antioxidants and nutrients that are so important for our health.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that fact sheet that you sent me, Shireen, is gone. Okay. So the fact sheet that Shireen sent is available in the resources section of the Thrive Hive. So do download that. And there's also links in the event notes to various other resources, including some webinars. Do you want to say something about the webinars that you've got?
Yeah. So we've got some introductory videos on the website that cover the basics that we've talked about, how to transition, the potential health benefits for heart disease, cancer. Even we've got one on mental health by Dr. Gemma Newman. We've got one on pain management, etc. So just some general overview webinars that are free to access. And then we've started a fortnightly live webinar series to really replace our live events for this year. So anyone can tune into that, but then the sort of playback of those will be in the members only area, because we are a membership organisation, just as a means of generating some income for what is otherwise a voluntary run organisation.
Great stuff, thank you. So what else? So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about how this pandemic started and what benefits there are of a plant-based diet around potentially reducing the risk of contracting or getting serious repercussions from coronavirus?
Yeah, well, I think there's two things to cover there. You know, looking back over the last sort of half century, or even actually over the last century, going back to sort of the 1918 flu pandemic, most of our pandemics, up to 70–80% of pandemic infections that have occurred, are due to usually a virus jumping from animal species to humans, having in between somehow mutated. The theory for the current coronavirus is that, you know, most coronaviruses originally found in bats, so they've identified this coronavirus in bats, and then it's thought that the pangolin, which is a mammal that is actually the most trafficked mammal in the world, was the sort of go-between, and that pangolin would have been on sale at the wet markets in Wuhan. So that's the theory, but certainly coronaviruses come from animals and somehow make that leap. And that leap to humans is much more likely and increased because of the way we use animals for food. It's what we've done to the environment, the loss of their habitats, the loss of biodiversity within our habitats, and then the quantities of the meat we're eating means that it has to be produced sort of industrially in factory farms. And
gone again. Sorry about this, folks. Pangolins. Just Google pangolin quickly if you don't know what they are. Really lovely, really cute. All animals are lovely. That's why I don't eat them. But yeah, pangolins are great.
So these conditions in factory farms are just really, you know, a cesspit for the growth of various infections, essentially. And although we're quick to blame the Chinese, I mean, I think if you look back in history, many countries have contributed to new viral infections or transmittable infections. So, you know, we don't have to look back that far to the CJD crisis in the UK. You know, we generated that problem by the way we were feeding our cows. You know, swine flu started in America, for example, back in 2008. So, you know, all countries share this responsibility. And until we stop using animals as food, we are not going to see an end to this. And we're in a really, really terrible situation right now. This virus is really causing a problem and causing severe illness and death. And I work in a hospital that's really had its fair share of cases. You know, we have had over 1,000 cases of coronavirus infection and COVID-19, which is the disease it causes, at King's College Hospital. So I think we need to look more carefully at how this started and how we will stop it ever happening again. And that requires us all to act. But I think the other thing that's come out from this pandemic is showing you the vulnerability of individuals who have a chronic illness. You know, we've all accepted somehow that hypertension and diabetes and heart disease is just, you know, what we expect as we age. You know, 1 in 3 people, you know, over the age of 60 are on blood pressure tablets, for example. But what we're finding is those people who are getting the most severe infection, who are ending up in hospital, who are ending up in ITU, and who are ultimately dying are those who have got high blood pressure, who are overweight or obese, who've got cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, or underlying lung conditions, which may have been generated through smoking, either currently or prior smoking. So what that comes back to is making sure that we are the healthiest we can be, that if we are exposed to infection, which I think we will be, I think we're all going to be exposed. We can't prevent the transmission any longer. But what we want to do is make sure the outcome is as favourable as we can make it, and that's by reducing our risk of chronic disease. And the number one cause of chronic disease is an unhealthy diet. Not to underestimate the role of...
Gone again. Sorry, folks. If you've got any more questions for Shireen, do send them through before we end shortly, and we'll see if we can answer them. It's good to have an expert in the studio to be able to give us some scientific evidence around the benefits of plant-based nutrition and lifestyle in general. Ooh, struggling to get back in, I think. So in the meantime, any of you considering switching to a plant-based diet, or perhaps just reducing your meat intake, then do let me know. Add it to the comments. Sorry about this.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So as I say, the top cause of chronic illness globally is an unhealthy diet, and 1 in 5 of us is going to die because we were eating an unhealthy diet. So that's 20% of all deaths globally. So, you know, during this lockdown, I think it's just the opportune moment to consider how we can reduce our risk of chronic disease. And the more you can shift to a plant-based diet, the better for your health. It doesn't have to be 100%. I'd like to say it does have to be, but it doesn't. You know, predominantly eating whole plant foods, minimizing animal-derived foods, salt, sugar, fat, will give you the best chance of reducing a risk of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, etc. And in fact, this sort of diet works as well as medication, you know, so it's not that we have an alternative to our conventional medical treatments. You know, you can use diet and lifestyle, and not to underestimate the role of exercise, stress relieving activity, good sleep. You know, I think what's really difficult in this lockdown is to keep a routine, isn't it? You know, bedtimes and getting up times sort of go out the window, but it's really important for mental health and physical health to really have a good sleep cycle, get 7 to 9 hours a day, and keep that in the usual hours that you would be sleeping if you were going out to work.
Yeah, great tips, thank you. So do you know anything, Shireen, around, is there any research around the mental health benefits of plant-based diets? I know, you know, personally, what I eat affects my mood, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever kind of research you've got around that would be...
Yeah. So a lot more research has been done, and in fact, there's even been randomized studies, you know, showing an improvement in conditions affecting our mental health with the more plant-based foods you eat. And what's become clear is that our mood and our mental health really starts with the health of our gut bacteria. So most of our brain active hormones like serotonin, dopamine, etc., are made in the gut. They're made by the gut bacteria. And the main nutrient that your gut bacteria need to thrive is fiber. And of course, fiber is only found in whole plant foods, and most of us are deficient. So the average UK population gets about 19 grams a day, whereas we're meant to be eating 30 grams a day, and the more the better. You know, prehistoric populations could have been eating up to 100 grams of fiber a day. So really, you know, we really need to up that. So,
gone again, sorry. So maybe in prehistoric times, people had fantastic mental health, even though they were perhaps at risk all the time of being attacked by wild animals. Interesting.
So fiber really is crucial to all our physical health, but also to our mental health. So as I say, serotonin, dopamine, other brain active hormones made by the gut bacteria, and they signal, so they make chemicals that signal between the gut and the brain. So the healthier your diet, the better your mental health. So I think some of the strongest evidence comes with eating of processed foods, so foods high in sort of saturated fat, sugar and salt, in the package of a sort of ultra processed food like pizza or whatever. Eating too much of that, or predominantly that, really impacts your mental health very badly. And conversely, the foods that are particularly good at enhancing your mood and mental health are fruits and vegetables. So nobody's going to argue that they're healthy for you, but because of their phytonutrients, their fiber, their antioxidants, they are really good at increasing your mood and the hormones that control that. And as I say, there have been randomized studies showing that the more whole plant foods you eat, the less anxiety you feel, the better your mood, better your concentration. So all these things that are really beneficial. I think. What was I going to say? I've forgotten. There was something about mental health that I've now forgotten. But it's for sure that there's no doubt at all that the more plant foods you eat, the better your mental health.
Great, thank you for that. And yeah, that really backs up my own experience. And I think I need to cut down on processed foods because they're easy for me. I'm not much of a chef.
Sure.
But I remember telling my friend that last year I had a period of about 10 days where all I ate were fruit, vegetables, and whole grains. And I felt amazing. And my runs, that when I was going out for my runs, I was just so fast and full of energy. And I thought, wow, but I haven't kept that up. So I need to do more of that. So thank you.
No, it is hard. It's hard for all of us. And when, processed foods are so easy, they're relatively cheap, you feel like it's a treat, apparently the supermarkets are run short on all these really ultra processed snack foods currently, because I think we're all just reaching for comfort food. But unfortunately, it's probably the worst thing we could do right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. There's a lot of anxiety out there, and comfort eating is something that we all respond to,
because we're wired to that. Our brain
gone again. Sorry, we are nearing the end, so hopefully we'll only lose Shireen maybe one or two more times. Let's see, what else do I need to ask? There we go. I think we're coming to the end now, so hopefully we won't need to do this too much more, but I do apologise.
Yeah, so I think I was just saying, our bodies are wired to like food that is high calorie density. Unfortunately, despite the fact that food's in abundance, our bodies haven't moved on in an evolutionary way, and we still crave foods with high calorie, ready for that period of famine that fortunately for most of us never comes, but we just store these excess calories and don't have to ever utilize them for energy, because, as I say, famine very rarely occurs for us here in the UK.
Yeah, that's right. And sugar is really addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. You get that initial high, don't you? And but so bad. And I think it's worth saying that just because a food is vegan, it doesn't make it healthy. Studies have shown that unhealthy plant-based diets are just as bad as the typical Western diet. So you'll improve welfare for animals and planetary health, but you won't improve your personal health if you just shift to a processed vegan diet.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. So are there any films or documentaries or anything like that you would recommend people to watch if they want to know more?
Yeah, so for me, the best movie about plant-based diets and health specifically is Forks Over Knives. It's available on Netflix for those of you that subscribe. And then for me, the book that was most useful was Joel Fuhrman's book called Eat to Live. And those two things would be a really good starting place. And then you'll discover so many additional films and resources. But yeah, I think those are two easy starter books and movies.
Okay, thank you. And I'll add to that list. Cowspiracy is a very well-known one.
Yeah. For environment, Cowspiracy is excellent. And same producer, What the Health.
Yeah.
And Game Changers, wasn't it? I think the most recent one. So once you've watched one of those on Netflix, they'll all come up as recommended suggestions. But I think the fundamentals, Forks Over Knives, tells it as it is, and it's still true even though it's a bit older than those other films.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you. Okay, so just put this banner up again. There's lots of information in the links to the event here So if people want to know more, there's the webinars that they can join. There's the fact sheet about how to transition to a plant-based diet, links to a university course, and also the plant-based health professionals websites as well. So hopefully you'll get some information from those. As Shireen said, it is a kind of voluntary organisation. Donations are very welcome through the website there. Is there anything else, Shireen, that you'd like to bring that we haven't discussed already?
No, but just to really look at our resources, contact us, join as a member if this is something that you feel could enhance your general health and well-being. And we're just trying to build a bigger community of a general public and health professionals that will use plant-based diets as a means of keeping well and healthy.
Okay. That's been really interesting and great to get so many facts and your insight on this topic. So thank you very much for your time and expertise, Shireen.
No problem.
And apologies for the technical issues.
Okay.
Yeah, best wishes and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Take care.
And you. Toodaloo.
Bye.
There we go, folks. Really interesting. I wonder if anyone's been inspired to make any changes as a result of that. Do let me know in the comments or send me a message if you prefer. Yeah, sometimes, when we're ready for change, change happens. And I think this current pandemic is a really good opportunity for us to have a look at how we live, what we want from our lives, and reevaluate stuff. One of which is our lifestyle, not just diet, but just generally, as Shireen was saying about vitamin D3, getting out in the sunshine, and we can only do that for an hour a day at the moment. And yeah, thinking about the environmental aspects, the animal rights stuff, yeah, green stuff, and just our bodies as well. What we put in our bodies affects how we are physically, how we are mentally, the quality of our lives going into old age as well. So, yeah, taking personal responsibility. I wonder if anyone is inspired to cut down on meat, switch entirely to a plant-based diet, or even go full vegan. Let me know. I'd be interested to get a bit of feedback. So, what else have we got coming up tomorrow? Hopefully without those sound issues. Again, I do apologise. Don't know what that was about. We have got Mr. Hugo Metcalf, who's a larger-than-life character with a larger beard than me, and he's a wonderful man. He is a mental health first aid instructor like myself, so he's going to talk about that. But he's also got lots of other areas of expertise. He is a research psychologist and a resilience and leadership trainer. So he's going to be talking about one of his passions, which is digital mental health engagement, how you get people talking and interacting and improving mental health through digital means. So, excuse me, that's going to be really interesting. And he moves his arms and moves his body even more than I do when he talks. So I look forward to having a bit of a competition there of who can move the most whilst we're speaking. And what else is going on? Lots of great stuff. You can check it out on the Hive. So in the meantime, enjoy your sunny Sunday. And I'm going to leave you with a song by Over Oceans, local artist and friend of mine, and this is called It's About Love. And I've chosen this one because for me this is one of the reasons that I decided to go vegetarian and then vegan, because it's all about love for the planet, love for myself, love for all of the living beings. So I hope you enjoy this gentle acoustic folky number and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care.
Just talking about a thing called love, a simple little word from power by above. It doesn't matter who you are or the place that you come from. It doesn't care for what you know all the things that you have done. It's about love. It takes you on a journey through the sunshine and the rain. It's the only thing to make you feel the sweetest kind of pain. Once you know you've been there, things can never be the same. It's about love. It's about love. Me and you. It's about love. Things we do. Four little letters made to get along. Once you learn to hear them, you know that you belong. And all the things you thought were true, you learn to understand. And that's the real reason why we take the other's hand. It's about love. It's about love. Me and you. It's about love. Things we do.
Lovely jubbly. So, yeah, great stuff. Let's just see if there's any comments that have come in. Diddly-dee. Oh, somebody's given me an angry. Why is somebody angry? I don't know. If that made you angry, am I sorry? I don't think I'm sorry. I don't know. Hopefully, yes, really interesting, lovely ending words. Thank you very much. Maybe the angry face was a mistake. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe you're angry about me banging on about veganism. But there we are. There was scientific proof there that it's great for you, it's great for animals, it's great for the environment. So, yeah, go for it if you fancy it. If you don't, don't. Anyway, I shall love you and leave you. Bye for now, and hopefully see you tomorrow, 6:30, for Hugo with his arms and his beard and his knowledge of psychology and mental health and all that type of stuff. Goodbye.